And I specifically spoke to Tucker around the issue of homelessness.
I feel that drug addicts living outside are used as political pawns.
Okay. Well, that being said, what is Tucker's segment on homelessness like?
So despite its booming economy, San Francisco has lost its grip on its homeless problem and is struggling to provide basic services. Here's what we found when we went there. In the Tenderloin, we saw junkies shooting up in broad daylight and homeless people wielding makeshift knives. One threatened to stab our camera crew because we were filming there. In this video, a mother and daughter wait for a public bus standing just feet from a drug-addled man who's too intoxicated to put on his own coat. The city has...
I don't know. Kind of seems like you're vilifying and dehumanizing all these homeless people for, what was the thing you said just seconds ago? Political pawns. That's it, right.
I went on Tucker Carlson and Greg Gutfield's Fox News show leading the neoliberal establishment to attack me for being a right-wing conspiracy theorist. But is it necessary to have new conversations? And who is it that's interested?
Russell, learn these terms, please. They are also neoliberals. Neoliberalism doesn't just mean liberal. I know it has the word liberal in it, so that part's confusing. I get it. They still are neoliberals. They're still advocating for neoliberal policies. They still want massive deregulations to the markets. They still don't want corporations to have government interference in their business. They still do not want big social spending programs. They want to curtail that. They want to limit that. That is all neoliberalism. Just because it has the word liberal in it, like fucking liberals were also neocon warhawks at one point or another. Like that these defining words is not going to be unique just because it has the same fucking word in it.
In censorship now? Is it the left or is it the right? Hello there, you 6 million awakening wonders. Thanks for joining me on this voyage to
we don't have to skip to this, but I do want to show you the fact that he, if it's going to get to it, he interviews Tucker Carlson. Okay, we're going to get to this here. He actually pretends that the guy is a fucking friend of the homeless. I kid you not.
In our communities, and that the price for having autonomy and authority in your own community, and I mean power that's achieved democratically, is to allow other people to have their own power and authority in their own communities. However, centralized power wants, of course, a centralized, authoritative, institutionalized power to dictate what is possible and benefits from ongoing cultural...
So the reason all these clowns get so sucked into these worldviews, which eventually you're just going down the road of the Illuminati, right? The idea that there is one single centralized controlling power, we'll call it the New World Order, the Illuminati, the elites, the globalists, whatever. And behind these veils, they meet once a year at a thing called Davos, and then they decide how to do the Great Reset, which of course will control all of us under their talons, all of that kind of shit. It is a simpler way of looking at the entirety of the world and how all of these mechanisms and systems works, because the actual honest answer is they're complex. A single entity, a single powerful capitalist, a single powerful corporate board in and of themselves will not single-handedly dictate the entirety of everything that is going on globally. There are systems in place and we reinforce those systems. We also perpetuate those systems, and sometimes we aren't even conscious that we are doing that and reinforcing these same things in a multitude of ways. It is way more complex and difficult to look at it that way. In terms of the simplicity, though, it becomes more boring when you're like, well, who controls everything? Who has all the power? We know. All of the individuals who have a lot of capital, all of the corporations who have a lot of capital, all of the companies that have lots of... Like, you might find out some very shady things you didn't know about, say, BlackRock at a certain point or another, but you can understand based on the transparency of having to file taxes and be on these boards and be... All the numbers are traded publicly for a lot of these companies. Yeah, there's a lot of people in power. That doesn't mean there's a centralized meeting of the big 100, you know, where the 100 most powerful men. Okay, we'll say maybe there'll be like 16 women in there, but a lot of powerful men and a few women in a single room surrounding each other. They're the ones controlling every decision, and then once a year at Davos they make those decisions. Like, that's nonsense. But it's easier to think of the world in that term, right? It's easier to think that there's a ruling class of elites and they meet, and when they meet they decide everything for the rest of us, and then plan great resets and vaccine mandates and masks and other scary things that we all have to do collectively to not be dicks.
The reason I go on these various shows is in order to have conversations like this, because I believe change is possible. And before I show you these clips, bear in mind that just a few short years ago I did this at Fox News.
This is private property.
This bit here.
Yes.
Whose property is it?
The building.
Who's the building belong to?
It doesn't matter.
No, it does matter.
It doesn't matter.
I'll just say it then.
You want to get arrested?
We were booked on to Sean Hannity's show. Okay. And then it was cancelled.
Yeah, cool, epic. Let's just get to the segment.
There were moments where I gently and respectfully confronted Tucker Carlson around some of the issues where I explicitly disagree with him. For example, the way he's spoken about homelessness in the past, perhaps identity issues, issues of sexuality, and I was surprised, in fact, about how little Tucker Carlson really cared about regulating the private life of other people. But what I would say is that what inspired me about this conversation is both Tucker Carlson and I are absolutely disenchanted with establishment power, whether it's on the left or the right. That neither of those terms mean anything anymore. That authority and government power has been co-opted by financial interest to such a degree that no one is voting for anything meaningful anymore. Have a look. These are them facts that I was going to tell you about, if I may. I hope you will. I certainly shall do my best. I wanted to do it down the barrel. Did you see that? Did you see the presumptiveness of me there, Tucker? To turn straight ahead for my single. A single that frankly wasn't there, because this is Tucker Carlson today. Let's get a nice...
Like, unless you are okay with a racist-ass fascist, none of this should feel fun. Like, being in that room. Like... At best, you get to say that he's completely oblivious to the world around him to such a degree that he's just a useful fucking clown. That's the best case scenario, and I don't think that's the case. I think a certain part of him is like, well, we've been lied to, right? We've been lied to, broadly speaking, by society. We've been lied to about aspects of society, and you know what? Maybe we have more in common than we thought before. Maybe it is just a ruling class of elites that are trying to keep us down and oppressed. So, Tucker, what did you do when Donald Trump was in power and then he was trying to give massive tax breaks to the ruling class and the rich elites? What did you cover that? Did you care about that when Trump did that? When he passed the tax cuts for corporations that would directly benefit the ruling class and the wealthy elites that control us all, right? Did you cover that, or did you talk about racist trees? What was going on that day?
Your shot. I'm Mr. Brand.
Thank you. Look at he directs from the floor. Hello, America. In the world of energy, you know, energy that we require to do stuff, to move things about, to warm our homes, at least 100 members of Congress own fossil fuel stocks, of which 59 are Republicans and 41 are Democrats. Oh, look, the Republicans are a bit worse. Pharma. Of the $263 million of the pharmaceutical industry spent on lobbying in 2021, it gave 61% to the Democrat Party and 39% to the Republicans. Oh no, the Democrat Party is a bit worse. Wall Street. In 2022, commercial banks spent over $30 million lobbying...
Yes. It's true. This is a massive problem. This is fucked up. We should probably stop this thing. We should probably identify it. Absolutely. What is the purpose of what he's saying, though? And that's like, in the first case, when it's more than double, it's not like, yeah, well, you know, slight difference there, slight difference there. Yes, guess what? The Democrats are in the pocket of big tech. The Republicans are in the pocket of big energy. Again, these aren't secrets.
But to be able to say that kind of stuff on a mainstream channel is helpful and advances the conversation and is generally, I would say, conciliatory in tone. Elsewhere in the chat, I explicitly say that I believe people should be able to identify however they want, express themselves however they want, as long as they don't hurt anyone else, obvious kind of stuff like that. And I specifically spoke to Tucker around the issue of homelessness. The only thing that I've ever seen, sir, that I would call you up on is when I've seen you talking about homelessness, and I feel that when talking about the subject of destitution and people that live in poverty, that the basis for that conversation should be love, and also for all of the displaced people in the world, that the foundational principle should be love. I'm not claiming that I'm able to maintain that line when something offends me for some cultural or personal reason, but I know that this is what I aspire to.
I agree with that, and I feel that drug addicts living outside are used as political pawns.
Okay. Well, that being said, what is Tucker's segment on homelessness like? Let's check out Tucker. Homelessness has no obvious solution.
Cops do nothing about them. So despite its booming economy, San Francisco has lost its grip on its homeless problem and is struggling to provide basic services. Here's what we found when we went there. This was the scene outside our hotel in San Francisco. A homeless man, hungry for dinner, digging through a trash can for food. The epicenter of homelessness in San Francisco is the Tenderloin neighborhood. It's just blocks from tourist attractions like Union Square and major thoroughfares like Market Street. In the Tenderloin, we saw junkies shooting up in broad daylight and homeless people wielding makeshift knives. One threatened to stab our camera crew because we were filming there. In this video, a mother and daughter wait for a public bus standing just feet from a drug-addled man who's too intoxicated to put on his own coat. The city has...
I don't know. Kind of seems like you're vilifying and dehumanizing all these homeless people for, what was the thing you said just seconds ago? Political pawns. That's it, right?
About 470 intravenous drug users per square mile.
Wow.
One reason so many homeless congregate in the area
Look
is a
how
place called
homeless they are.
Glide Memorial Church. Like the city around it, Glide is political and post-Christian. Back in the 60s, it removed its crosses to be more welcoming.
So one of the places providing services for the homeless, one that is allowing them, I'm assuming, to be fed, to be clothed, and to be warm during the wintertime, is ungodly. It's lost its way, and part of that is one of the reasons it's part of the problem. You realize how this is all framed, right? This whole thing is framed as in the homeless problem is the homeless problem. Why are people enabling the homeless problem?
This man was out cold on a sidewalk just blocks from the church. Next to him, a partially eaten birthday cake.
It's also so fucked up to do this, to do a segment like this, to film extreme poverty for a fucking political segment in which you were going to vilify poor people.
Syringes that the city passes out and water packets that help addicts cook heroin on the street. How does a city this rich get so dirty? One reason, San Francisco no longer enforces quality of life citations, like sleeping on the sidewalk or public urination. The city used to use citations as leverage to get people off the streets.
And into prison? Russell, this is fucking gross. Like, this is absolutely revolting. The way Tucker Carlson not only talks about homeless people, dehumanizes them to this fucking degree, and then is like, I think a big part of the problem is that can't arrest the bums anymore for doing bum shit, know what I'm saying? Like, if they're fucking sleeping on the side of the road, I mean, you used to be able to just take them off and fucking throw them. I don't know where they go. They got the help they need, I assume. I mean, if you saw one peeing on the side of the road, you used to be able to just do this thing. You pull your phone out, you hit a couple buttons, and then a police officer shows up, and then they're gone. You don't have to think about them anymore. And again, I assume they're getting the help they need.
But in 2016, a liberal judge called Christopher Haidt flushed all 64,000 outstanding warrants for quality of life crimes. Every one from 2000.
Damn. Didn't criminalize 64,000 different people. Just fucked up. 64,000. So many potential citations. So many violations. Could have had so many homeless people in prison. Why not? I mean, that's just the solution to homelessness, isn't it? If we just lock every single homeless person in prison, that'll, I mean, yeah, free prison labor afterwards. What can you say? So obviously this is all inhumane and gross, and so is Russell Brand. And I'm sorry, Russell Brand, who at one point in his career actually was, like, now you are endorsing this shit. At one point, he was someone who would fight for housing rights in the UK and for people being evicted against their will because they're too poor, shit like that. Now he's palling around with a person who's just fucking weaponizing, vilifying the worst of, like, people who are in the worst fucking situation in society possible. You are living on the street, you might be drug addicted, and filming them, exploiting their poverty to push his political agenda of wanting them to be arrested more, and just saying it all out loud. And then you do this where it's like, so fucking love, it's fucking love and brilliance, and fucking wonderful wonders why you fucking hit subscribe, like, I love Tucker Carlson, he's a fucking wonderful bloke. It's like, motherfucker, this guy is vile, and the shit he does is like, he's a white supremacist. What did you expect? Oh, white supremacists acting all white supremacists, like, surprise, surprise. And yeah, Russell Brand always has this deer in the headlights when people, like, well, he's hanging out with Donald Trump Jr. right now. He's hanging out with fucking the Fox News 5, the Gutfeld, being like, oh, no one understands these people. And then when people are like, yeah, no, he's directly helping do PR for the far right. He just did an episode with Steven Crowder, one of the fucking biggest anti-LGBTQ plus bigots in the game, does a full-on fucking Rumble show, does what he always does, you know, where he's like, oh, I just, you know, I don't think that you should hate people because of their identity, blah, blah, blah. And then Steven Crowder's like, oh, I don't hate them because of their identity. And then he's like, oh, okay, well, then that's good enough for me. Guess you're a good guy now. Guess everything else in your catalog is all just kind of gonna work itself out then. Nothing else to see here. It's always just fucking downplaying the far right. It's gross. Fuck them. Fuck them all, I say. Do you enjoy the Serfs but prefer not to have to use your eyeballs? Many are saying this. Well, we've got the solution for you. It's the Serf Times in podcast form. Available on most major podcasting networks now. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a good review and feedback because it really helps the show out, apparently, and it's free, just like the podcast.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Juste, we shall spend many a generations building mighty cathedrals in your honor. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are but your oafish jesters, here to offer you a laugh at any opportunity. To our brave knights of the Round Table, Rachel K., Izzy Solidarity, Victoria Bell, Sebastian Demel, Mark Harmon, Benji Arnie, Scary Earth Human, Tony, DM Rivera, Resident Scarecrow, Sir Nickus, Cheryl Alvarez, Ruby Kelly, Brandon, Words Greenwood, Everything Important, Hegbert Celine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Ariane McCarthy, Doug Cady, Daniel Sutton, Jenna Tao, Dark Puppy, Quiet One 85, Anna Loves Riley, Omni, Riley and Anna, Poodlehawk, Multimondi, Trevbot EXE, Brian Ephraim, Anthropophojack, Catherine, Ramon Acosta, Incosin, Ralph Parler, Violent Orchard, Political Puppy, La Media Panza, Todd Buckingham, and Todd La Jeunesse. We salute our valiant heroes off to fight injustice everywhere.